Welcome back, everybody, to Phil's Recap and Review, the Week in Review. Today is September 25th, 2015, and it is the end of the first week, the first legitimate week of the season. Yes, premiere season. And it's not just new shows coming back, but there's a couple of old shows coming back. And instead of doing specific recaps on every episode like we usually do here, we decided to get together and do, at the end of the week, kind of a recap of whatever shows we watched. And this week specifically talking about a weekly roundup. This week specifically talking about some of the premieres and what shows we're going to continue to watch. But if this is your first time checking us out, please, please, please check this video out and see if you enjoy our bullshit. And if you do, please hit the subscribe button and comment away about what your favorite premieres this season are and what shows have kind of disappointed you as we're going.
If you don't like our bullshit, fear not. We have many flavors of bullshit for you.
Right, exactly. If you're more of a strawberry bullshit and we're giving you vanilla bullshit, we'll get there. We'll get to that level of bullshit. We talk about a lot of shows in more depth as well. Sometimes we'll do episode recaps right after the episode airs. Sometimes shows years later. We'll talk for 3 hours about an episode that aired in 2011. Lots of different stuff. We're going to doing some movie reviews, some top 10 lists, all those sort of things. So if you're checking this out because you're searching one of the random shows we're talking about here and checking us out for the very first time, join our friend group, start talking about this shit. And thank you so much. If anyone, I know a few people were in the chat of the last event we started. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty, so we had to start a new event. So welcome to this side over here. And we're going to talk about a bunch of shows tonight. But if you want to join in the fun, you can jump in the chat and share your thoughts. You can email me at igotissuesman@gmail.com. You can also call in here if you would like, and you can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and leave a voicemail if you'd like. Or call in during a live show to be on the air. And that's 781-990-8509. And also, I'm going to put out another thing. There's also Skype. If you want to give me your Skype, we can call you if you want to be on at the time of our show. If you want to send me an email message to igotissuesman@gmail.com with your phone number or your Skype number, I can call you. We can actually make house calls. We can call into your house. Just leave me a message if you want us to call you, and we'll call you. We won't abuse it, but we'll use it. That's my promise to you. I know you're like,
George R. Martin, send Phil that phone number so we can have a nice little talk.
Exactly. I think you should do that, Mr. Martin. So I'm not alone. With me is my co-host friend, Joe Dirty Locks, who is like Goldilocks, but much, much dirtier.
Much dirtier. Dirty Lock.
And we're also out here talking about shit in the day. We don't usually talk about stuff in the light of the day, but we're going to try. We know there's a lot of people, a lot of different parts of the world. Right now, we might not have a lot of viewers live with us right now because we're at an awkward time, but we're going to start doing these casts at different times of day. So hopefully some of the people around the world that are checking us out can check us out live at different times. And this will be a regular thing every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be coming out here to talk about Week in Review. So this week, we're going to talk about a bunch of shows. Now, some of the shows we're going to talk about, just so you're prepared for it, Gotham. We're going to talk about Minority Report. We're going to talk about The Muppets. We're going to talk about Survivor. Yes, we are going to talk about Survivor. We're going to talk about Limitless. We're going to talk about the Scream Queens. And we're very, 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 very briefly going to talk about The Bastard Executioner. Someone also asked me a question when we said we were going to do this. They asked me if I'm going to release these as the individual show discussions as well, like kind of like cut this video up a little bit. I don't know. I'll see about that. Let me know, those of you that are watching this weekend recap review, if you'd like to see me put out this whole thing and then cut it up so each show is a different review too, so you can easily access whichever show we're talking about in these. I can do that as well because we'll try to keep it within the discussion. And if you watch the complete live broadcast, it's almost like you're watching us tape something. Yep. Farcloud, one of our great friends that if you join us, you can join the chat. Farcloud's one of the best out there. So is Ren Renwood, who's around as well. I know Ren was in the other room. Says, no, Bastard X. Don't worry. That's the first one we're going to talk about. So here we go. Let's start. This is a new adventure for Joe and I. Usually we're talking about one episode for 3 hours. So Joe, do you want to give your immediate thoughts or reactions to this week's episode of Bastard Executioner and the last episode of Bastard Executioner we'll ever be talking about on this show?
Yes, because I have to admit, I know I said I was going to give it a few more episodes, but I watched about 10 minutes of this. Maybe even I got through 5, like the first scene. I think I got through 5 minutes. I picked up my phone and I started flipping through Facebook and Google Plus. And 35 minutes later, I turned over, I looked at Katie and I said, are you watching this? Because I haven't been able to follow it. It hasn't kept my interest. It's absolutely fucking horrible. I cannot stand Katie Sagal. Every time she opens her mouth, I'm like, why on earth did they have to make her Slavic? Her accent's awful. The wardrobes are awful. The scenery is awful. The blue screen is awful. The story, I cannot keep myself focused on because it has absolutely zero movement to it. It's all, like you said last week, Phil, information release, so that like when we see a character on screen, we'll have some clue who he is later. It's just awful. I couldn't watch it. We turned it off and I'm done with it. I won't put it on again.
I'm going to voice what Farcloud says right here. Unless Al Bundy shows up, I'm out.
I'm out. I don't even want to have to wait for a chance to see Al Bundy. Even if Donkey Kong himself took off his cut and made the trip over to the set to play the frickin' monster in the cave or the hunchback or the beast or whatever, I'm done. It's awful. There's no guest star that could save this show, in my opinion. It is a piece of dee-dee.
Okay, if you don't know what we're talking about, put on your headphones, Joe.
I'm sorry. They are plugged in. What's going on?
That's okay. If you don't know what we're talking about when we say Donkey Kong, we're talking about Ron Perlman. Who looks more like Donkey Kong than any other human on the earth. Okay, Joe, I feel almost exactly the same with you. I have heard a few people that I respect their opinions that are actually enjoying this show, that are getting into the story and trying to explain to me that the story is multi-layered and there's a lot of stuff going on. I guess you're a smarter or more attentive person than I am because I don't see it. I get lost. I had a very similar reaction to you. I put it on. I was like, I'm going to give this a real decent shot. I've watched a bunch of other stuff this week. I'm going to look at this. Maybe this third episode will be better. Maybe it will actually get to something I care about. And I hate to say this, they start the episode off right with Katie Sagal. I'm sorry to dwell on the Katie Sagal thing, but it's like this show is just shoving her up her ass. And then she was like more involved in the second episode than the first episode. If she was just a secondary character in the background, like she was originally supposed to be in the original concepts for the script before Kurt came in and sort of punched it up a bit, in the first initial concept, when Katie Sagal was supposed to be a surface character, I could deal with it. But like they are shoving her so far up her ass, it seems like she's the star. They're putting her with the main character.
She is the star. She is absolutely the star. This is not about the person that is playing the executioner at this point, in my opinion. It is mostly about her, and her role has increased over the last 3 episodes that I could see.
It's awful.
I can't get over the Slavic part about her. It makes no sense to me. Makes absolutely no sense to me.
I agree. Or at least if they were going to do it, could someone at least direct her that her accent isn't believable? It's really comical. And again, I don't want to dwell on this because if you want to see us dwell on this, you can listen to a 30-minute rant that we go about that show on last week's, because everything still holds up. A couple comments before we step on.
I have one more thing to say too about it.
Say it first before you forget.
What you were saying, it's absolutely. I absolutely agree with you.
Rocky and Bullwinkle. Fearless Leader's accent is worse than Robert De Niro's accent in the Rocky and Bullwinkle movie.
It is, but about her, if her character was a tertiary character, maybe we visit her once every episode or once every couple episodes.
You're on Viking.
like the guy on Vikings, correct? Like the seer on Vikings, I wouldn't have a problem with her accent. I probably wouldn't even have a problem with this character. But like I said, for the premiere episodes, that they're in fucking Druid country, for Christ's sakes, and it's not like when the Catholic churches came in and like decimated the area, they got rid of all Druids. No, that shit persisted until to this day. It was persecuted a bit, but no more so than this fucking witch would be, who's from a foreign fucking land with this awful accent. They might kill her just for that accent.
It's just horrible story plotting, because I understand that. I don't think all the casting's bad. I think the surface cast, I think if you had one or two big charismatic personalities that were leading the charge of this, some of the background actors that you have in there are doing a decent enough job with the material that they're getting. But if it's possible, the second episode bored me more than the first 2-hour episode, I'm out. Firecloud says, or if Hodor showed up and screwed that witch, maybe it would be okay. Yeah. And Firecloud said, and what's with the snakes and the sign of the cross? Firecloud, you've been watching this far more than I have. Like I zoned out before any of that. I noticed that stuff, but nothing. The show is not doing a good job of bringing us into the world slowly, which is what you have.
All character introduction and zero story movement. I don't know what this story is about. I really, really don't. It's about a guy who was almost killed, assumed some other guy's life. There's been no 3 hours and zero story told. We're introduced to all the characters and we have a background, but it's just to me it feels like bad storytelling. Yeah, it shouldn't be this slow. There's no reason for this to be this slow.
Yeah, let's not dwell on this any longer. So Don Blast says, "Sorry, Phil, wanted to catch, but at the doctor's all day. I liked Minority Report and Scream Queens." Hi, Joe. So Don Blast, we will be talking about those two shows, but what should we talk about first? I guess it's Minority Report might be a good first place to start. So. Let's do this. And if we were going to...
I was going to tell you to get into Scream Queens.
Okay, we can get into Scream Queens first. I
actually hadn't watched Scream Queens, so I'm interested to hear. We were gonna, and then while we were watching, I think it's on the same channel as Minority Report, right?
Yes.
We saw an advertisement for it, or a little interview with the one of the chicks, black chick. I don't even know who she is, what her name is. Cute, real cute. Watching this promo for Scream Queens and her little interview of how she was just so excited to get the role and all this shit, I was like, Katie, I do not want to watch that one. I can't do it.
Fair enough. Okay, so if we were doing this, we're going to separate this later on and edit it together, what you guys are seeing would be the setup for it. Okay, so now we're going to start the Scream Queens video. So everybody, welcome back to the show. So we'll be doing crap like that. So welcome back, everybody. We're going to talk about Scream Queens now. Joe didn't get a chance to watch it, and I guess I'm going to try to either convince Joe or advise Joe.
I like the blonde chick that's supposed to be one of the main characters.
Forget about any of the actors. Joe, forget about any of the actors when it really comes down to it. Do you like Jamie Lee Curtis? Yes, you like Jamie Lee Curtis. Do you like the beginning of Ryan Murphy shows before they get all stupid?
Who's Ryan Murphy?
Ryan Murphy's the guy that did Nip Tuck, did Glee, did
early Glee. I liked early Nip Tuck.
Okay.
And the chick from American Horror Story and American Horror Story. I only watched season 2 and 3.
Let me finish here, Joe. I'm convinced here. Do you like all those things? Yes, you do. Do you like Heathers? Do you have you ever watched Gossip Girl? Do you like Blair Wardrobe?
I didn't watch Gossip Girl, no.
Okay, so the basically some bitch character that's going to tell everybody the most outlandish shit you've ever heard in the world, completely off-color remarks about pretty much every person ever in the history of the universe, mixed with a cheesy slasher kind of vibe. That's what Scream Queens is. And I gotta say, I love Ryan Murphy shows at the beginning. Same as Joe. I love at the very beginning when these shows start, before he has to explain a lot of shit.
Before he has to hire other writers to get him through a 20-season episode.
And this is what I got to say about Scream.
20-episode season.
It might not have done so well in the ratings, but if you like his style of filmmaking, especially the comedic aspect of it, you gotta watch it, because it's no show I've ever watched has stunk more of Ryan Murphy. Maybe the beginning of Glee, but this has a very similar feel to it. To me, it feels somewhat similar. It's about a sorority that's involved in some really fucked up shit, and then we learn a lot about the town where the fucked up shit is happening and how the sorority rules. It starts in 1995, then we jump 20 years in the future. Jamie Lee Curtis is a big part of the show. A big part of the show.
See, they don't advertise her like in any of the previews. I didn't even realize she was on it. I might have seen her like a flash quick, but I don't think I even realized Jamie Lee was on this shit. So that's gonna I'm gonna have to. That'll be my mission. I will check in next week with this show, and
check it out. Check it out next week. I'll
watch the premiere and then on demand, and then I'll check out episode 2 for next week.
Let's jump into.
Tell me. So it was good.
I'll get to that in one second. I just want to jump in the chat for a second. Farcloud says, let's talk about Joe being on time and how the doctors suck. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. I'm sure Joe will go and Joe has a few rants about how much the doctors are fucking sensitive bastards. Farcloud says, do you like yogurt? Jamie yogurt? Yeah, I love Activia. Activia.
No proof it does anything, by the way, more than regular yogurt.
Farcloud says, you guys really like dark shows. I scare easily and can't watch those evil shows. To be honest with you, I
Glee.
But I feel the same way. I can't watch American Horror Story. That scares the shit out of me. I had to be convinced to watch The Walking Dead for it not to be too scary. I'm not.
No, I don't buy that with you, Phil. Mr. Freddy Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street's funny.
Not the first one.
It's still funny. Freddy Krueger.
Not the first one. When that movie came out, Phil, that was not a funny movie for you. You were in middle school, maybe even grade school when that movie came out. So the first time, come on, those were scary movies. It isn't your genre. I will say this. I don't think I've ever come over to your house and you're like, dude, we're watching Halloween. Like it or get out.
But I do scare easily. The Nightmare on Elm Street, for whatever reason, that didn't scare me. Friday the 13th always scared me. I'm not a big Friday the 13th, but Corey Feldman scared the shit out of me. No, Friday the 13th.
Nightmare scared the shit out of me way more than Friday the 13th.
Friday scared me more than Nightmare for whatever reason. Freddy always struck me as almost like an action hero level of comedy. Even in that first movie, and the other reason is I didn't see that till I was also watching Just the 10 of Us and Growing Pains, so I knew Nancy from those shows, and I sort of had a kinship with her. Anyway, so getting back to Scream Queens, it's not that scary of a show. It's the horror is used more for comedic value. It's horror more in the sense it's campy, but it's campy and offensive.
I see. I should have watched it. There was parts of me that did want to watch it. In American Horror Story, I watched season 1, gave up after a few episodes. A few years later, I watched the New Orleans season and loved it. Thought it was great. Kathy Bates. Oh my God. So, I was glad I gave that show a second chance, and I've watched more of it now. So I'm actually going to give this a better chance.
I would say Jamie Lee Curtis is in a very rare part for her. This whole world is really fucked up, very Ryan Murphy, very fucked dark humor, period joke in like the first 30 seconds of the episode. Humor is great. So many jokes, very dark, very dark. Jamie Lee Curtis is smoking a joint at a point in time in the episode.
I wish I had known Jamie again. And I know I hesitated because I wasn't that I was going to say, no, I don't like Jamie Curtis. I was going to think of a way to honor that pitch the best I could, because I've always, I know you have a dozen of her movies right now: Fish Called Wanda, The Last Action Hero, True Lies, Halloween movies. Like the list goes on and on and on of how many things she's been in that I have absolutely loved her in. And, she's a beautiful woman, too. So.
It is graphic, though. Farclad just asked a good question. It is a graphic show if you're not into the visuals of slasher movies. It's slasher. It's not horror. It has a very much scream. There's almost also, if you watch Nip Tuck, the the villain per se that we don't know. There's nothing to spoil right now, so I won't spoil anything in any of these reviews. I won't spoil any information from episodes, but I will tell you that if you're into the Carver at all, it might give you some flashbacks to the visual of Nip Tuck. The show, again, I can't say it enough, that it just had that thick Ryan Murphy thing going on that you feel. It reminded me, the sensitivity of it reminded me a little bit more of Nip Tuck than anything else, but it's really offensive. Really offensive. Like the main girl character, the blonde girl, she says some of the most ridiculously horrible, inappropriate bullshit in the first 30 seconds of the episode that she's on screen. She plays the ultimate queen bee bitch character. Again, if you've watched
shows, racially offensive, everything
offensive.
Nice.
It's Ryan Murphy. It's Ryan Murphy being as offensive as he possibly could be in writing.
Good. I dig that. And one of the reasons I dig that is because those people exist. Those people are out there. And I find a little bit of humor in a lot of racy.
The world isn't real, though. It's one of those it's a satirical world where fucked up shit is happening, and fucked up shit's accepted. You need
sounds like the real world.
No, more than anything, it isn't a show you would need to you need to shut your brain off, because it's completely almost in the theme of bad 80s horror movie mixed with Brian Murphy racially offensive humor. It's weird.
I can dig that. I can absolutely dig that. I'm gonna check it out. I'll give it a, Phil, I wasn't gonna do it because they did not make it look too attractive to me on screen, but with your review, you sold me.
I agree with you that the promotion, I wasn't sure whether I was going to like it. 5 minutes into it, I'm like, I'm going to love this show. That being said, I don't think it's going to last long, because I don't think it's going to do well, because I think a lot of people are going to be offended by it. If people are being offended by a show we're going to talk about later called The Muppets, then I think people are going to be offended by this. So let's continue. I want to jump in the chat. Farclad says, never watched Nightmare on Elm Street or any of those. Are people chopped up? Then no, not for me. Kathy Bates once tried to French kiss me. Really? Oh my God, that would scare me. Kathy Bates always scared the shit out of me because
I would enjoy that so much.
Oh no, Farclad said I always scared of her when she did that breaking the leg thing. She wasn't Yeah, I know. When she breaks James Caan's leg, I'm like, that's Sonny from The Godfather. She can't do that.
There was no acting in that movie. That's how that's how she was discovered. One of the writers found her in the woods.
Tim, to answer your question, what we're talking about right now, we're finishing up talking about Scream Queens. We're going to be talking about a bunch of different shows that we watch. This is going to be our weekly recap where we talk about like 5 or 6 or 7, just a handful of different shows that we're watching tonight. Right now, we are talking about
Roundup,
Scream Queens, and next we're going to be talking about shows like okay, so let me just finish up on Scream Queens and we'll get to our next show. So yeah, Scream Queens, if you're into that kind of show, give it a check out. Shut off your brain, shut off your being offended by anything on the door, and just relax and watch some ridiculosity. Leah Michelle's also in it. She's very good. All the performances are really good. Again, a very ridiculous world and very college, a very much of a focus on the sorority life and that kind of stuff. So it does have some ridiculous satirical stuff going on there. So, check it out. Yeah, in Farclad says, yep, the real world is exactly like this show. Okay, so we said the Bastard Executioner and Scream Queens. So what should we talk about next, Joe? Let's talk. Minor. What was that?
With the same network and go minority. We talked about how offensive we can be to minorities. Now let's report about it.
Okay, you want to talk about Minority Report. So let me get to my notes of Minority Report here. Okay, so here we go. Next show. Now we're going to talk about Minority Report that premiered this week. Basically starting a trend, or not starting a trend. Last year probably started the trend with Fargo being successful and them not really having much else to do. Sorry, trying to find my notes for it. People running out of ideas, like the recap sort of stuff. So so Minority Report is out, and Minority Report is one of the first of 2 episodes that we're going to talk about that were, how do I say, remakes or sequels of movies that were out. Minority Report
First, let me ask you a question, Phil.
Mhm.
Minority Report, the movie. What was your take on the movie? How did you like the movie? Did you like Caviezel and Cruz and the story in general?
Minority Report. Did I like it? I'm going to quote Tim. That was a great story that became a subpar movie. That it's going to be a lame show. That is a lame show. I think Tim said that perfectly. Okay, what did I
thought it was a. Did he say read what he said again?
That was a great story because I think it was based on a book that became a subpar movie that is a lame show.
Okay, I can't comment on the story. And
well said, right? Well said. Okay, Minority Report. What I really think of the movie is I think visually and put together wise,
action
wise, excellent. I think a lot of the extra stuff that's going on around in the world is very interesting. But I think Tom Cruise gives a good enough performance for the Tom Cruise character that he plays.
Tom Cruise well.
He does Tom Cruise well in that movie. I mean, there's movies he doesn't do Tom Cruise well, but he does it well in that movie. But for the most part, I think the movie's story or the way the movie dictates the story gets bogged down at the end. And I don't think it's not something I go back to and think of as a classic Steven Spielberg or Tom Cruise movie. It's just there. It's one of those movies that's just kind of there for me.
Yeah, I wasn't impressed with the movie. I thought the movie was awful, and I was actually. Do
you like the show better?
No, I really didn't. I really didn't.
I thought the show sucked. I kind of thought the show sucked.
The show did. It was a police drama. It's gonna be psychic detective, like it's set in the future, so some of that stuff is kind of interesting. I like how they're playing with the technology of the future and things like that. It started out okay. The first section first of all, I have to say something because we're going to talk about another show later that next I think we should talk about it, that I think everything that this did wrong, this show did pretty much right. The other one did right.
The other one did right. And we're talking about, just in case you're just watching our Minority Report review and you're not watching the whole thing, if I do separate this at a later date, we're talking about Limitless, and we'll talk about Limitless in a second. But Minority Report,
back on the Minority Report, right?
Minority Report. I think it started out all right. It did not need to be 2 hours. What the fuck did I have to sit through 2 hours of that shit?
That was 2 hours long?
I believe so. I believe it was 2 hours.
It was only an hour long. It was only an hour.
And it felt like 2 fucking hours.
It did. It lost me as soon as she went into the apartment to do as soon as the detectives were basically
the problem.
In the apartment, and they were using the weird technology that I kind of liked. This scene killed me. I thought those two chicks were very bad. The costumes, she was wearing a coat that just had her boobs out the whole time.
I think this show is indicative of a problem.
On the face.
Oh, it was awful. This show is indicative of a problem that I've had a couple of times recently with shows. And I'm going to talk about the show a couple of times today. Intelligence with Josh Holloway from Lost, Sawyer from Lost. And then there was another show with another Lost character called Alcatraz. And in both cases, it had interesting things that were going on in the sub-story. Things about the island of Alcatraz were interesting. The back in time stuff that was going on was interesting. But the cop story that they were trying to pull off was lame as shit. Same as in Intelligence. Everything with Josh Holloway dealing with powers, and it's something a little problem I have with Limitless when we get to that too. But when they start to try to throw the cop story or the FBI story or the military, the investigator story mixed in with what could have been a more interesting story, what I kind of liked at the very beginning of the Minority Report episode was focusing on one. If you've seen the movie, it deals with these 3 kids that were raised into being these psychics, precogs as they called, and at the end of the movie, they all are, spoiler alert to the end of Minority Report, they're all freed and they go on their own.
Right, because nobody can actually see the future. Small things can change what happens in the future, right? No future is permanently written, basically. And that's the idea that they finally eventually come down with because of the way that Tom Cruise was set up in the movie.
Farclad and Tim Gesh are kicking my ass in the chat right now. I love it. Farclad says the only good Tom Cruise movie is the one he's killed in. Have there ever been a movie he was killed in? Good point. He always wins in the fucking end. Vanilla Sky, maybe? Does he die at the end of Vanilla Sky?
He dies at the end of Vanilla Sky. He's also dead at the end of
dead from the head up in Top Gun.
He dies in Valkyrie, right? Doesn't he? The Nazi movie, because he doesn't succeed in killing Hitler.
Interview with the Vampire. No, he stays alive in that. Probably his best movie. Doesn't he die in Born in the 4th of July? Which I think is probably his best performance all in all.
No, he lives throughout. He lives for a while. He does all the protesting and all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so let's continue. Tim says, oh, so let me get this straight. This is another get stoned show that you have to get stoned to deal with it. It's not even that good. I wouldn't even put it that point.
Basically, it's going to be a weekly cop drama where, as they're chasing down the bad guy, our very nervous, very rookie-ish, not a cop, but an ex-precog, like a third of the ex-precog team is, running around with her, having flashes of psychic premonitions as they're going through whatever. So like, you're going to see a lot of like he'll get a flash and then he'll be like, Doc, or he'll tackle her because someone's going to hurt her, but he knows because he gets the psychic flash. It's
Dead Zone.
It's the cheese factors.
The Anthony Michael Hall thing. What was that? The Dead Zone or something where he could feel shit or what?
Yeah, it's going to be that. It's going to be just everything that it's a generic cop show set in the future with a psychic with, You know what this stinks of me, Joe?
Stinks of me as they had a generic cop show and they didn't know what to do with it, and they decided to just stick it into the Minority Report universe, and now we have a hodgepodge of bullshit.
That's right, they could have done this without even coming.
Why the Minority Report? Why tap that franchise? Is it that we're reclamoring for that Minority Report sequel?
And what Minority Report was over 10 years ago at this point, something like that.
A long time ago. It was
people don't even remember this fucking movie. Why would you maybe that's the point. Maybe they don't remember that the movie was actually really bad.
To answer your question, Firecloud, is Minority Report the show another Bastard Executioner? No. I would say it's a better show than Bastard Executioner.
It is a much better show than the Bastard Executioner. Here's the thing too, with all these shows, they're all pilots, and I always if I decide that it's like a 2-star out of 5-star pilot, or a 2-star show, if it's a pilot, it's automatically going to get another star in my mind, because all pilots are a star below what they actually end up being.
Yeah, because pilots need to put more in and not really show the story unless it's a full season order at the beginning. But if it's a pilot that has to sell the show, they want to show you as much bullshit in that first pilot as
Gotham was drowning in
awful pilot.
And I could see where it was going to go. And
there was enough good things in there.
But if I do my little adjustment and add that star, it was more than enough to get me to keep watching. Minority Report doesn't quite make it. It's based on bad material to begin with. As far as, if I leave the book out, I never read the book. As far as the movie is concerned,
a book by Philip K. Dick, Tim Gesh says.
And so it's already starting in a bad place in my mind. The pilot wasn't good. I can see the genericness that it's going to be.
Yep.
Nothing really original. I wish they hadn't tapped Minority Report franchise in order to make this. They could have made it something on its own, and they could have made it slightly more original too.
Drinking game on. Yes, Firecloud. That being said, I can see how some people, and I'm not insulting you, if you're into the cop drama stuff, which there is an audience for it.
I'm into that stuff. I love Elementary.
And you're a big Minority Report fan, it does give you more elements of that universe. If you're one of the people that were striving to find out what happened to the precogs, it seems like from the direction that they're going to go and the previews that they seem, it's going to go way into the direction of the precogs and where they go from here.
And I was happy that it was in the future of the movie time and not set during the movie time and set during the precog universe.
Good points. Visually, they do a very good job at translating Steven Spielberg visuals onto screen.
Yes.
It does a good job. A lot of the little side stuff that you enjoyed about the movie, little touches here about cool things that the military could do in the action sequences, they make sure that they bring all of that in to show you that exists in that universe. So all that I enjoyed. I thought it was a slickly put together thing. I thought some of the acting was bad. Some of the casting choices were horrible. I hated the main actress that was teamed up with our main character. I did like the guy that played the precog, and I liked the woman that played the precog. I thought they were both really good. But for the most part, this is a skip it. I'm not going to watch the second episode.
Yeah, I'm not keeping up with this. It's gonna, and I don't think there's going to be much of a storyline to it. I think it's just going to mostly be weekly chase down the bad guy. You get a teeny bit of this kid's past or future family life with this brother and sister precog. So yeah, no, it is though. It is. I still much better than the Bastard Executioner. Is a 1-star. This is a 3-star.
So Joe, ultimately, I think Firecloud just asked and is pushing it. I think that's a good one. Watch it, give it a chance, or skip it.
I'd say that's actually up to you. If you like things like
What's
Elementary,
your rating for you?
LA Law. For me, I watched the premiere and I'm done with it. We actually Katie and I looked at each other about halfway through and we're like, should we?
Okay,
we're both kind of done with it, but we said we would finish off the episode. We did, and we won't be like, oh, tonight's Minority Report night. Gotta get to the TV.
Okay, let's move on to our next show. Let's talk about Limitless, and then we're going to talk about Gotham. So, because Joe didn't get a chance to watch Gotham, so I'll do a quick thought. Okay, so since Joe has to step away for a second, so we'll do Gotham now, and then we'll go to do Limitless. So everybody, here we go. We're going to talk about Gotham. Now, I have to say this. I'm going to talk about my feelings of Gotham last season as a whole. I did a recap of the very first episode, and we touched upon Gotham a couple of times. And I do have to say, I really enjoyed the first half of the season of Gotham last year. I thought towards the end of the season, I'm not sure if I think because Jada Pinkett was going to be off the show, they focused a little bit too much attention on her character towards the end of the season, and she legitimately was my least favorite part of.
She was the worst part of the series in my mind. She was awful. Her acting. She was an awful. She tried. I kept getting like Eartha Kitt.
She was trying to do an Eartha Kitt. I don't want to talk too much about last season, but let's just say that I do think that last season, for the most part, I liked. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it ended on a strong point. I thought it did. The second half of the season wasn't as strong as the first half, but I really, really love the Gordon Bullock relationship. Yep. I love that actor. I love both actors at this point. I really enjoy the Bruce Alfred dynamic. I think it really works. I think Penguin, although a little overdone in the second half of the season, is an excellent character. And I think the world of the Gotham underworld is very decent the way they do it. I think visually this show looks brilliant, and spending all that Fox money, I think so much of it work that it's okay that a handful of the episodes in the back half of the season were duds. I also didn't like Barbara last season. So getting into the new season of Gotham, knowing that a couple of things have changed, that you no longer have her there. You no longer have the Eartha Jr. there. Fish Mooney's gone. You also have Don Maroney is still there, but Penguin is basically now the king of the city. I mean,
he had them all fight each other in the finale.
Falcon when he decided to retire. So this episode of Gotham really, really, really is a step in the right direction, and really has me so fucking excited for this season of Gotham. I know a lot of people. I love visually how they did it. I love the Gordon stuff. It's a great step. It's a lot less comic book silliness, and Jada's gone. The Penguin stuff. It was amazing getting to see the Penguin as top dog. I'm not going to spoil.
Tell me, because here's the thing. I loved last season of Gotham, and the only thing that more so than Barbara that kept pulling me out of episodes or scenes was all the Fish Mooney stuff. I couldn't stand almost any of it. Every second she was on screen, it hurt my brain. That being said, are we sure she's out of it? I only missed it accidentally. Whoa. I loved the show in general. So
right. I want
I missed it. I can't wait to start watching it. And you telling me that she's out of it, and if she's out of it for good, I am super excited to get back
To
into
answer
this.
your question, Firecloud, or a comment, it's a mistake to bring in all of Batman's enemies. It's a mistake if the show is good. I agree with you because I think it's too much too fast. What I don't like about the show, and we'll get to that in a sec. I'll get to my dislikes in a second. But what I don't like for the most part is the fact that they feel like they have to bring all Batman's enemies in real quick. But it's bad if the show is going to continue into Batman. If this show is just to be this Gotham universe, I think they're just trying to throw all the shit at the wall and make us enjoy it. They're completely recanonizing this version of Batman. In some ways, I don't like.
I like that.
I
actually kind of like.
But what I like about it is its own version, and I'm sort of trying to detach my preconceived Batman, almost in that Smallville place. I know I said the bad word, but almost in that, it's almost Batman's version of Smallville, this Gotham. It's completely different universe. But let's get back into the episode just so I can talk a little bit about it. There's the stuff that I didn't like in the episode was some of the prison stuff where with Barbara in prison, where we get to see all of Batman's enemies. A little bit too much of a focus in the first episode on the Joker. I don't need to see the Joker ever on this show for a long time until the final season. The Riddler stuff that they did in this episode, the change that they've made Enigma to make that more pronounced, I like that a lot. But I couldn't agree more with what Farcloud said. What the show was missing towards the end of last season is too much focus on everything going on, not enough focus on Gordon. And what I loved to fucking death about this episode was the decisions in the episode that Gordon needed to make, and how so much of a focus on everything that was going on was on Gordon and everything that even the interactions with Bruce that he had, with Bruce pushing him to make a decision he wouldn't have normally did, and in a way sell his soul to the devil. I loved that. And I also loved all the Penguin shit with him working with Zaz, and now Zaz is his main assassin, seeing the two of them work together, and the viciousness that they've let out on the city of Gotham was really amazing. A lot of great surface stuff. I have to say, I enjoyed the fuck out of this episode. It was a much better premiere than last year. Some of the prison stuff I didn't like with Barbara. I did not like the changes that they're making with Bruce in the Batcave stuff, and how stuff with his father and going all Peter Parker's, your parents are really fighting communists, Spider-Man stuff with the what I mean. You'll see what I mean when you watch the episode, Joe. They're really focusing that his father started the Batman thing before he did.
Right.
And I don't particularly like that. And so I agree with Farcloud essentially of the less of the boy, more of Gordon. But the problem with less of the boy is Alfred's one of my favorite characters on the show.
Yeah. Alfred is definitely is probably my favorite character on the show, next to Gordon's partner.
Bullock, yeah. Bullock, that's the one. That's another minor complaint. But you know where it's going, and especially with previews for next week, you know where it's going. Bullock is not a big part of the episode. Bullock has a lot of things have changed from the time of the end of the last episode to what's at the beginning of the episode. Some time has passed, and some decisions were made by some of our characters. So, and then some other big changes happen. I would say this season, right off the bat, has less of a fantastical feel to it, or less of a stage play. Oh my God, you bad man, ha ha ha. And Penguin legitimately seemed like a vicious threat at times in this episode, instead of getting a little bit too comic booky that he got at the end of the series. I really love. I'm blanking on his name right now. The actor that plays Gordon, that was in you know him from Southland, right? Yeah. And I know him from the OC. I've always been a big fan of his, and he used to be called Young Russell Crowe, like he looks like mini Russell Crowe or something like that. That was a big but I really like that he's in this show and working. It makes me really happy because I like what he does, and I guess I really like I would, and I have to say that I was very low on Gotham at the end of last season. I was very, I'm not going to say I hated it, but Ben McKenzie is his name. I thought the season ended bad, and I was fearful where it would go. Now I'm a little bit more optimistic.
Yeah, no, I liked I enjoyed all of last season's Gotham, with, like I said, exception Fish Mooney stuff. I'm glad she's gone, and I'm excited to start watching that season.
Absolutely. So my decision for Gotham, if you watched last season and you were on the fence, watch it. And if you haven't seen Gotham before, being familiar enough with the universe, and you're curious about checking it out, last season is worth watching, especially some of the highlight episodes of the series. And I think Gotham, now that we're into this first episode of the second season, it looks like it's going in a more positive direction. Maybe if you stepped away from the show for a while because you didn't like what was happening, check out the series premiere of series 2 and see what you think. I personally really enjoyed it, and it excited me again for the show. Hopefully they won't let me down, and hopefully they don't do too much of the silly stuff that I don't like. But I do like where the direction of the season seems to be going.
Cool.
So Firecloud, final comment on this. Firecloud says that Jada Pinkett Smith made me hate Will Smith. Her horrible performance made me hate Will Smith.
You know, I used to enjoy Jada Pinkett. I was a Pinkett fan. You know, Set It Off, right? Great movie.
She was
good. Great in that.
She was decent in the Matrix movies for that world.
Yeah. The two Matrix movies she was in were like
they were horrible.
They were the franchise ruiners. Like, that's the moment. That's the
wasn't the reason, Joe. She wasn't the reason that they failed. It was the horrible.
No, it wasn't. But that's the moment in her career where I'm like, what the hell is, like, that's the changing moment in her career. And I think that's right around the time of right after she married Will Smith.
Have you ever seen her hardcore band? They rock pretty hard. What I like is about what I always liked her is because one of my but yeah,
she went to school with Tupac, so like I loved her.
me too. That's what I was gonna say. But I was like, why the fuck does that matter? She went to school with Tupac, and theoretically, Tupac broke her virginity. So I always felt really good. There's actually a funny video out there if you've never seen it, where they were going to school together, like slow dancing or grinding dancing together to a video to Parents Just Don't Understand. They did it in a class as an assignment, where it's just the two of them like humping to Parents Just Don't Understand. It's really surreally weird. Okay, so that's Gotham. If Jada was a problem for you, she's gone. The show seems a little bit more focused this season from the premiere, so I'm interested to see where it goes. So anyways, that is Gotham. Check it out. Next show we're going to talk about, Joe. You're going to have to help me with this a little bit. I actually just watched this, but it was the one show I didn't take notes on. So we're going to talk now about Limitless. Ooh. Now, Limitless, I have to say right off the bat that the movie itself was the only movie in my life I've ever watched alone in a movie theater. I was in Philadelphia with somebody that had a work thing to do. We were coming from Atlantic City, and we stopped in Philly so they could do some work. And we had like 3 hours to kill. And I was thinking, what the hell can I do? And I was stuck in this certain area, and the only thing to do was go see a movie. So I went to see Limitless. It wasn't a movie I had heard a lot about going in to see. It wasn't something I was particularly excited to go see. I think Bradley Cooper is really good, but I'm not a huge fan of his. I think he's very good, though. I went to see that movie, and it blew my fucking mind away. I love that movie. I would say, I think it was 2013, maybe 2012, but I think it's 2013. That would be one of my top 2 or 3 favorite movies that year. I loved the shit out of that movie. And
this movie surprised me too. I thought it was much better than I thought. It ended up being much better than I thought it was going to be from the previews. And again, this is much closer to the time the movie actually came out, and then they're starting this series. It's not like, oh, let's do The Shining. I mean, that's kind of classic, but like you know, why reboot Minority Report? That's so long ago. People are trying to forget that movie, and you reboot it into a series. Limitless, at least, is still fresh kind of in people's minds. And that's something that I would love to have this pill. I've talked about this many times. You know?
It actually exists, not to the fashion of which that the show depicts it, but there is a similar type pill that's supposed to do open up. It's where the idea for this movie and the concept came from initially. I actually did a little bit of reading about it. Some people claim it's similar to like a ginkgo biloba type thing, where there's no hard evidence that it truly works, but that it does exist. So Limitless was a movie I really did enjoy. It was one of my favorite movies that year. I really enjoyed the visual style of it. I liked the storyline, and as Joe pointed out, to sequelize this movie into a television series, it was a good time to do it because it was still fresh in people's mind, but starting to fade enough for people to go, oh, I remember that. That was an interesting idea. That might be kind of cool to do as a TV series. Yep. Visually, especially on the same station that brought you the show I was talking about before, Intelligence, that depicted Josh Holloway having a computer enchanted chip in his brain that sped up his reflexes. This thing has been done a lot. It's familiar to people, a Sherlock Holmes thing, that the way you can depict that on television, it's very conducive for a television show. And I think for the most part, 95%, they did a decent job of translating what the movie was into this television show.
They did a great job translating. Basically, too, the first half of this kind of premiere was basically like
the first half was excellent.
And because it was a quick retelling of the original movie, almost. Like it was almost kind of like
beat for beat. It was almost beat for beat.
Right. So it was already familiar to people, and that was something that I kind of was like, this is, and it was throwing me off at first. But then it started to take its own.
So, Joe, that's so weird you say that, because to me, I had a different path, but to the same result. The beginning part made me feel warm and comfy, like I was in the movie, like I was seeing the similar type thing. I'm like, okay, this isn't new and different, but they're getting a same character. He looks a lot like Bradley Cooper in his own way. He has a very similar vibe to him. What is this guy's name? I have his name written here somewhere. Jake McDormand. He from the TV show Greek. He has a very much a Bradley Cooper vibe about him. His storyline that he's going through is very similar. Someone that had some talent, but now is like marred in some shit happening. His father gets sick and he's completely lost. He lies to a bunch of people, and then he meets a friend that he's sitting in a restaurant that has a discussion with him and says, here's a pill to unlock your potential. And then it goes into very similar to what the movie does. Then when we got a little bit too much into the murder investigation and the FBI stuff, in its own legs, I must be honest, I lost focus a little bit. But then let me finish. But then at the end, when Bradley Cooper showed up and everything kind of comes full circle, and that scene dragged my ass back into it, and I am so fucking excited. The fact that he just showed up, that you just like suddenly it's like, here's Bradley Cooper, and he's giving it. He doesn't give a half-ass. It's like when he showed up this summer for the first day of camp stuff, the Netflix series. Bradley Cooper is able to show up on set to do that. Bradley Cooper is one of the biggest movie stars in the world, yet he'll show up for this series and do a kick-ass scene. I fucking fell in love with it. Go, Joe.
Interesting point. So I kind of felt the same way about all of that. And when he showed up, it definitely started pulling me back in. But then when it actually ends, and it ends on how he's going to now be working for the FBI, I thought, oh, great. Now it's just, to me, it's going to be weekly cop.
Yeah, that bothered me. The end bothered me at the FBI thing.
And here's the thing. I liked the guy that played his dad, our main character's dad, with the chromatids, whatever disease in the eyes and all that.
He's been in a lot of stuff. He has
been in and that's what I was about to get to. He played our main, basically, bad guy in a show called Alias. And for those of you out there who don't know, Alias is the show Bradley Cooper got his start on.
Ooh, interesting. So
Bradley Cooper ended up coming in on like season 2 or season 3, I think, in Alias. He might have even been on right from the start, but he was in Alias, and the guy that plays the bad guy, or the dad in this, played like the main bad agent in Alias. So it was fun to see them in a project together too. So
absolutely. So I can't say enough good things for the most part about this series. It did get bogged down, as Joe just pointed out, with a little bit too much of the atypical cop drama bullshit towards the end of it a little bit. And I hope it doesn't end up being that again, similar to Intelligence on the same station. I hope it doesn't fall into the same trap, which Intelligence the premiere I loved a great deal, and then eventually ended up getting too bogged down into the FBI, the business, the company bullshit line of a show we're going to talk about in a few minutes here, that did the same sort of thing. I don't like that, and I've seen it, and I don't want to see more of it. I want to see something new and different in the first part of this episode, in some of the parts when they're dealing with the drug and all the everything to do with that, with now Bradley Cooper's character dropping a bomb that I'm not going to spoil about what his character is doing, getting future information about his character too. That is what I love about it, and continuing on to that universe.
He's a senator don't want to
don't get too into it. Don't get too into that. That could be a spoiler. I don't want to.
I guess that's a spoiler. I mean, it's hard to spoil any of that stuff. It's neat, but that's basic information that they're just throwing at us.
But fair enough, Joe. I don't think you can really spoil anything in a pilot. To be on, pilots
trying to give you all the information they can to get you into the show. There's no big plot lines. There's no big. I mean, just telling them that Bradley Cooper showed up if they didn't see a preview for it was kind of a surprise.
So I guess that's a good a time as any, because I think we've basically talked the shit out of this show, and we can't talk it up enough. And so
the visuals were really good. I really liked the way they did all the pill stuff. They took all that stuff from like the way his focusing and the narration of him working everything out in his brain, telling us what's going on.
Exactly like the movie. They depicted it perfectly, and the actor that they got the cast and the part
did very well.
Great job. My only weaknesses is the casting around and just the whole focus of the FBI.
Deborah from Dexter. She was the worst part of Dexter, and I'm not excited to see her in this. Although I will say she's not playing as big of an idiot.
So here we go. Limitless. Fucking watch it. Or watch it. It's a watch it. I would say this. If you like the movie, watch it. If you did not like that
weekly crime drama stuff.
If you did not like the movie, do not watch it. Skip it. If you don't like the
crime drama fan and Limitless fan, watch it.
Okay. So
be a week chase down the bad guy of the day.
So Joe, let's do it. Our next show. 1, 2, 3. Bum 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 bum. Let's talk about the Muppets and the Muppet Show tonight. Let's just talk about the Muppets. This show, let's get it out of the way. This show has been getting a lot of shit from parents groups. There's like a million parents.
It's not for kids. The Muppets weren't for. It's like people who are like, how dare Pee Wee Herman go jerk off in a movie theater? How dare you not know that Pee Wee Herman started sniffing coke on Cheech and Chong? He's an adult stand-up comedian. So the same thing with the Muppets. This was an adult primetime show when it started, the Muppets. It wasn't meant for kids. Yeah, kids like puppets, but they were meant for adults.
It's
like
not
the Flintstones, for Christ's sake.
It's not Sesame fucking Street.
Correct. Okay. Correct. It's not Sesame Street. You didn't see frickin' Big Bird, did you? No.
That being said, straight out, I got to say this right off the bat. I laughed my fucking ass off.
Hell yeah.
I laughed my. Do you know what this show reminds me of? Besides,
hey man, it's not that kind of meeting.
Besides what people can say, it reminds people of 30 Rock. I get that, but what I mean when I'm going to say what I'm going to say, there's a show on, I believe it's the Cartoon Network. It might be on just some random Cartoon Network show or a different Cartoon Network show, it's like the new Looney Tunes or something. It's like the Looney Tunes done almost in I'm not gonna say a Ren and Stimpy style, but done in a different style. And it's not the Looney Tunes, but it's fucking funny. This is the Muppets, and it's fucking funny. They take elements of each of the characters, and they really, in some ways, as much as I did enjoy the 2 reboot movies recently, my favorite Muppets is Muppets Take Manhattan. That's my favorite movie. The Muppets Caper. I love all the Muppets movie. I love the Muppet Show. I loved all that. I do fall off to a certain extent in some like Muppet Treasure Island when it got a little too kiddie, or Muppets in Space, movies like that. But I love the Muppets doing more adult humor. It really works. It fucking works. Especially certain things worked especially well in the show. Fozzie Bear was fucking hilarious. Gonzo, they finally made Gonzo funny again for me. Miss Piggy stuff, I could take it or leave it, but I think I like what they're doing with her. But I always was never a huge Piggy fan. And Kermit is freaking amazing. Kermit is so good.
They did a really good job. The writing for the show is really good. I definitely like how it's very much 30 Rock.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. And I personally, because no offense against 30 Rock, because I know there are people out there that love it. I enjoy the show. I might, if this continues the way it is and actually lasts long, I'll like this show better just because of how much I love the Muppets. The voices are all done extremely well. The one-on-one interviews, joke. I don't want to ruin every joke. I can go through every joke. I wrote every joke down. The one-on-one interview joke with Gonzo, like how they were at the very beginning when he's like, people in these interviews always say what they don't mean.
They contradict themselves 2 seconds later.
And then they snap right in. He's like saying, I love those interview things. Yeah. Or he's going, I hate those interview things. The old men were hilarious. The big monster had this a couple of great moments. One character
that really got everybody in. They did successfully what Gotham tried to do unsuccessfully for their pilot.
The band,
basically they introduced all of the Muppets. Almost all of them got at least one line or 2 lines or something, and they were still able to introduce us to all and show all. They were all there. If you had a favorite Muppet character, you saw him on screen. You really did. They were there.
The only one I missed not seeing, there was one Muppet I noticed not seeing, and maybe I just blinked an eye and didn't see him or he didn't have a moment, was Rolf, the piano playing dog. I didn't see
Rolf.
He was the only one I didn't see. But the band stuff that they did, with Imagine Dragons, was hilarious. Elizabeth Banks and Miss Piggy moment, the two of them, I challenge you not to laugh at some of the stuff that the two of them did back and forth. Tom Bergeron was even excellent in the moment that he was in the episode. If you like the Muppets and you don't have a stick really far up your ass and you're going to think that the Muppets are going to be too offensive, and I'm not saying anything wrong against, parents want to protect their children. It's not a show for kids. And the Muppets, I'm sorry, this isn't Muppet Babies. The reason why Muppet Babies were created is because the Muppets were more of an adult franchise, and their parents were like, why can't we get a kid's version of this show? I just love the fact my life is a bacon-wrapped hell on earth. Kermit's line about that.
Oh, Miss Piggy is a bacon-wrapped hell on earth.
Yeah. It was I can't say enough. There was a great moment where there was a audition with Elizabeth Banks in Miss Piggy auditioning for the Hunger Games.
I like games, and I am hungry.
Oh, it was just so great. And I'm trying to find the name of the character. That there was one Muppet that was just so fucking hilarious that he isn't even usually my favorite Muppet. It was Pepe. Yeah, Pepe was just off the hook hilarious in this episode. It was he
dancing with the czars.
Yeah, the czars. The whole dancing czars scene. And Kermit's like, yes, this is a new definition of hell. Again, if you like the Muppets, if you like the 30 Rock humor, this show doesn't feel derivative towards it. It does feel like it's
dangerous. Oh, no, not at all. I'm wearing protective gloves.
Checking the stick, checking the stick stuff. It's just such a great. I needed to laugh like this, and it made me laugh a great deal. So if you like the Muppets, if you like that kind of 30 Rock humor or behind closed doors humor, it's not the one thing that I guess if I had to complain about one thing, or if I had one minor complaint. I understand why they're doing it as Piggy's show. I wish it was the Muppet Show.
Yeah, as a variety show instead. I was kind of thinking that too, but then I thought I like how the original Muppet Show was the Muppet Show. Was that variety show with
I guess I just wish that, I wish that they were producing that show, and maybe Miss Piggy was still considering herself the star or whatnot, but I guess just because I would have wanted, that's for my selfish needs. That's not an X against the show. That's on me, I think.
Yeah, I like it that they're doing it this way because it allows them to spend less time on I don't know. They didn't Miss Piggy's show. What did we get? 3 seconds of her show, actually.
Yeah, 3 seconds of her show.
And I kind of really like that. It's all this preparation for the show, but we don't get to see the show.
So Muppets, I say watch it.
I say watch it. I say I'm going to keep watching that.
I'm gonna keep watching that. Yeah, it's
I'm not a big Muppets fan. Like Muppets and Take Manhattan, The Muppet Caper. I saw those when I was a kid. I never really was able to sit through them the whole way through.
You're not a huge Muppets fan. This is probably your favorite Muppets thing ever.
Yes. Well, second favorite. There's a little actually Sesame Street spoof the Gone with the Wind spoof.
Yeah.
Like they're just chucking sheep and shit across the balcony. It's like they're blowing away in the wind.
Okay.
That was really cute. There's a few little skits from Sesame Street that I like that have to do with the Muppets, but for the most part, not a Muppets fan. Big Muppets show fan and going to enjoy this show. I laughed quite a bit. Good chuckles, good laughs.
So we have two more shows that we're going to talk about here. First one, let's just get this out of the way because it isn't necessarily a show we're going to talk too in depth about because we know it's not everybody's thing. But I watched, this is season 31 of Survivor Second Chances. Cambodia, and the last night was Wednesday night was the first episode, and I have convinced Joe, or by my suggestion, Joe has gone and checked out the first episode of Survivor, so I know what I think, and I watch these kind of shows. I'll give my thoughts in a second. Joe, having not watched Survivor, is it something that you'll watch next week, or was it one and done for you?
No, I'm going to continue to watch it. I'm going to give the whole season a run through. Katie doesn't like it, and I'll tell you, the show will absolutely lose me if they kill that fucking chicken. I'll be done.
Oh, you better not watch them.
I'll watch until that chicken dies.
The chicken's dead. The chicken's dead. I'm telling you, I've seen it before.
I know they killed the rats in season
one.
No,
you haven't watched. They kill a chicken every season now.
I'm sure they do. And
it's a decision. They pull up the decision. It becomes a point of contention in the tribe where some people argue that you should.
They want to eat the chicken, and that makes zero sense. There's 20 people. There's 10 people in your group. That one chicken isn't going to feed those 10 people to any kind of like good sustenance. You kill that chicken, and you're basically killing it for a snack, so everybody can snack. Even if you wait till there's only 5 people left. Okay, now you're killing it, so it's a little bit more than a snack, and I don't find that good TV. I think it's cruel, and it doesn't need to be done. There's plenty of other ways. It's not even dramatic to me. They don't. It's honestly at this point, you're 5 or 6 seasons too late for that to even be a dramatic thing. It's just they just do it now. That's stupid. Like, big deal. Yeah, if I'm hungry enough, I'll kill a chicken.
Honestly, then you probably shouldn't watch the show. If that's going to deter from your enjoyment of the show, I wouldn't watch it because
I just don't enjoy people killing things for no reason. Like, I always feel a little bit bad when I step on it.
Let me talk a little bit about what I thought of this season of Survivor. I like all the casting. I do miss, for those of you that know about Survivor, I do miss Shane not being there. He is one of the characters I really wish was there and got the vote. Someone like Woo, I don't mind being there. He's entertaining enough to watch, but I really wish it was Shane. My favorite character and the person I was looking forward most to see on this season, Stephen Fishbeck. And because I relate most to him, I feel like if I was on the island, I would be that goofy and that awkward.
Fish out of water.
Yeah, trying to break a stick and doing all that sort of stuff, and not being able to
30 minutes trying to break a stick instead of doing something that like can actually. And like that's what this guy's actually doing, is walking around going, I wish I could do more, but I'm just such a boob. I can't do anything. So I thought the teams were rather stacked towards the pink side, towards the red side.
Yeah, the other team, the team that ended up winning the challenge.
Like I'm looking at, and this is, I don't know much about the actual mental aspect of this game, and I know there's a lot that goes into a lot of backstabbing and plotting and getting to know your teammates and trying to, undercut and push people in front of the train and all that stuff. But just looking at their physical appearance and how this game started and the teams they put everybody on, I really got to say advantage red team. Yeah. Big advantage red team. Big
advantage at the beginning time. And I do have to say I'm also rooting for Jeremy. He is from, if you couldn't tell by his accent, he was one of the firemen guy, the dude that was trying to build the alliance on that side. Cambridge? He's from Boston.
Cambridge Fire Department.
Yeah,
Katie's brother is Cambridge.
No, he's wearing that because the show makes him wear that. He's actually from Foxborough, but the show wanted to make him. They wanted
more
to,
Bostonian.
Yes, but he is from Massachusetts. I believe he works for Foxborough Fire Department.
Okay.
If I remember correctly with all that stuff. So anyways, I don't want to dwell too much on Survivor because I know it's not everyone's bag of tea. If you're into Survivor, this is only the third full all-star season they've ever done. So I'm very excited to see it. It is worth mentioning for what we were talking about before, Joe, on the tribe that has the chicken, you have the girl Kimmy Kattenberg, I believe is her name, who is a staunch, big time, like high flying vegan who back in season 2 got into a knockdown drag fight and like let the chickens free so people couldn't eat them. So you may see a replay of that. They showed.
Well, here's the thing: it's one chicken. This time, it's one chicken. They only brought one chicken off of that boat.
For me, my biggest thing with it when it really comes down to it and the decision, like if I was out there because of my eating habits, I would argue that eggs were more important.
And bam, and that's the thing. So if you do have this chicken, you have this chicken, and the best thing you can do with this chicken is for him to lay eggs. And if you're gonna have your chicken or her, sorry, yeah, right, is for her to lay eggs. And if you're gonna have your healthy chicken laying eggs, laying enough eggs for people, you have to feed this chicken, which means, like, I don't know, there's just a lot that goes into it. You got to keep the chicken healthy.
Exactly. And I got to say that just for my eating, I would rather eat an egg. And in the seasons that they've laid eggs, people are stronger because the protein's really, really important. You get constant protein.
Yep. And if I probably would have been the one to grab the chicken. And since I grabbed it, if anybody tried to kill it, there'd be some serious problem. Like you think that chick put up a fight, a knockdown fight.
A couple of quick things. First, I'd love to see you on Survivor, Joe. That'd be fucking. Actually, I would
actually be put out so quick. No. See how I rage on this show about stupid shit.
You don't understand. A couple of seasons ago, not that you're comparing you exactly to this guy, but there was this dude on the season a couple of seasons ago called Dan from Maine, and people want to bring people like you to the final because they know people wouldn't vote for you in the final vote. So they try, and you would bring attention away from them. So people you wouldn't be voted out right away. You'd have to do a lot of shit to get voted out.
I would end up screaming at people, and then you know how sometimes Katie tells me, and I'm sure you've noticed this in my person, I intimidate without knowing I'm trying to intimidate.
Oh, you're a big bear. So I want to read a couple comments. Farclode says, I knew the first survivor. You knew Richard Hatch? I love Richard Hatch. He's one of my favorite survivors. He's a funny guy. I like listening to him on podcasts and stuff. He's a good guy. Yeah, eggs are best. Tim says, well, if we had Phil in Survivor, I would watch it. No hens don't need a rooster. I know seasons that they've had roosters and hens on there, so they possibly could lay eggs. I didn't see last night. Because usually they find them around camp. They're not necessarily taking them off a boat and jumping. But just for the record, I did. I actually did audition for Survivor, so I doubt I'll get on. But I sent in a videotape, so let's see about that. It'd be fun. I wouldn't mind doing it. I would get voted out rather quickly, but we'll see.
I think I would be. I would end up screaming at too many people. Like really screaming at him, and then some of these guys, they would want to get physical with me too.
I would probably be like the person that got voted out, that I'd get a little bit too touchy feely, and people would be like, "That feels."
That dude that got voted out last night, Mr. Creep Vitas, Mr. Creepy Pants. How many you want? How about you? You want some yoga?
Hey,
what the fuck does that mean? Do you want some yoga?
Hey Joe, how's your body? You want some yoga?
Yeah, how's your body feeling? You want some yoga? What the fuck does that mean, man? And you're sticking your fucking weird ass boxer brief cock it it's just like, of course you voted. Of course, everybody's either gonna vote for the bitch or for the creepy guy on day one, especially without the chance to converse about how people fucked up in the challenge. Which I liked.
Wow, Farcloud had Richard Hatch as a teacher. Hatch was a very good AS 400 computer instructor. I had his class. Was he a good teacher, or was he a little bit smug at times? I mean, I could imagine him being slightly condescending if people weren't getting anything. But maybe it was sort of like a lecture type class, which I could imagine him being probably good at. He's relatable and he's good at relating to people. And did he ever talk about Survivor? Did people ever ask him Survivor questions? New season of Survivor, Phil and Joe. To talk about Ren was talking about in the last chat room, who said she's Amazing Race is starting tonight, and she hopes it's a better season. Joe and I have often joked about going on the Amazing Race together.
We would crush that.
It would
Nobody would beat us. It wouldn't even be a challenge. Phil and I would destroy the competition.
Yeah, we'd destroy something. We'd destroy something. Awesome. That's awesome. He's one. I can imagine. I mean, he's Richard Hatch again. He just seems like would know how to talk to students in the right way to connect with them, because he's just he seems like a real people person. Oh, it was before Survivor. Interesting. Cool. That's really awesome. Anyways, so that is Survivor. I'm a big Survivor fan. I'm going to watch this season. Joe and I will talk about this season on these recap shows and touch in upon the series, at least until Joe checks out when they eat the chicken. And, or I don't know, maybe they won't actually show it. And this is an all-star season. They tend to feed them better. Did the tribe that didn't get the rice get the chicken, or was it the same tribe that got the rice got the chicken?
It was,
I'm trying to remember. I forget.
I can't
remember either.
Fully remember. I want to say the chicken might have even not made the journey off to the rice boat.
Yeah, it might have. Hopefully, it escaped for its own benefit. I hope it escaped,
because they didn't take it, and they took it out of the cage, threw the cage overboard, and then grabbed the chicken by the tail like an asshole, and then he jumped overboard. So he was like, "I got the chicken, let's go!" Like, you didn't even grab any other supplies. Now, and then he landed on the cage crushed. Now he's got to hold the chicken as they're all paddling across the 100 yards to the rice.
Wow, Farcloud, that must have been.
And why the hell didn't anybody immediately when they jumped off? They should have just bypassed the boat altogether and just swam right for the fucking rice.
Yeah, so they didn't get the idea until Kelly got the idea, and then when friggin' Wu jumped in the water, it was just like ninja stealth.
No, they should have she or someone should have just when they got up on top of the boat, swam underneath that first boat and went right for the rice.
Absolutely. Foolish. So yeah, Firecloud freaked out when he saw Richard Hatch naked on Survivor, but he's very, very smart. Would not play poker against him. Pun intended. So that is Survivor. I say if you like Survivor, so far it was a good start of the season, and I would watch it. I hope the last few seasons of Survivor, I think Survivor's in a very golden age right now, since the Philippines, Cagayan, and specifically Cagayan was probably my favorite season, with Tony and Cass and Wu and Spencer. And you got a bunch of those people on this season. You also have a bunch of people from Blood versus Water. I can't not mention how slick of a play it was by Kelly to get that idol during the middle of the challenge. That's a new thing this year, Joe, where they're hiding idols. And
yeah, no, I like that. I'm sitting there the whole time going, grab it now.
Yeah, very slick. You're
wait for. Just step backwards. Nobody's paying attention. Step back. God, yes.
Great and great job by Wentworth to get that. Fishback, I hope you do better. I like how this season's shaping up. I tend to enjoy all-star seasons and Survivor ratings. We're at an all-time high again. People are tuning into Survivor, and it's amazing that the show is still being as successful as it is to this day. It's amazing to me in some ways. So that is Survivor. Check it out. Watch it. If you like Survivor, watch it. Okay, so we have one last show to talk about, Joe, before we call it a day here. One last one, and that is Heroes. Excuse me.
Oh, Heroes.
So let's start it. Now it's time to talk about some heroes. Actually, I don't know why I'm doing that, because I don't think I'm splitting this one in half. But if I do, just in case I decide to at a later date, split these in half. Split these into smaller reviews. And again, as I mentioned, if you guys that are watching this later, or even the people that are watching this now, if you would like, that haven't seen the whole thing, if you'd like me to, I'm going to release this as one long video so you can hear all the in-betweens. But I also am open to downloading the video and then re-releasing it as 5 different videos of talking about each individual different show. So let me know in the comment section if that's something that you guys would like, and I can do that so it'll be easier to find each number, or I can try to figure out a way to do time codes and put the time codes in the descriptions so you can click to each review individually. But it's something fun about having your own videos, but blah, 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 blah. Heroes. Now, let's get out of the way here. Heroes is a show that's kind of important to my relationship with my girl right now in the way that I faked liking Heroes to get invited to a Heroes watching party just so I could hit on her. So it was a show I sort of got ingrained. I started watching in the last season, but it did grow on me rather quickly.
I loved season 1.
But I watched
season 2.
But I gotta be honest, I watched the later seasons before I watched season 1. I watched season 4 first, and then the last season, and then I went back and watched season 1. And I gotta say, I love the show from beginning to end simply because I didn't watch it from beginning to end. So I didn't notice the decline. I watched the declining episodes first and then watched the old stuff second. So then the declining stuff had a special place in my heart because it was the first stuff I'd watched.
Yeah.
So it never seemed bad to me is what I'm saying, except for somewhere in the middle of season 3. To me,
I didn't get out of season 2, episode 1. I didn't get out of that episode, and when that episode was over, as soon as it started and it was like Silas is still alive, I was like, okay, guess what? I'm done. Fuck this. That is stupid. There was no reason for it in my mind. There just really wasn't. It was childish. It was childish. It was the same old stupid freaking cliche cliffhanger that you get in all of this kind of crap. And for a show that really just separated itself, that was so organic and so real to life in a lot of ways with the character stories, to just give us this awful cliche ending of season 1, I was done. That was it. I wasn't going to give it another chance. And I'm glad I didn't, because that just, it was it was much more intellectual than a lot of people might have given it credit for in how it dealt with the character stories.
I'll argue with you about one thing, and this might hint at what I'm going to think about this series. I think Heroes wanted to be it's like pseudo intellectual. It's almost like the Fifth Element guy or Sixth Sense guy. What's his name? M.L. Shyamalan. Like when he's like tries to act like it's more important than it is. I think where Heroes lost itself was trying to get too smart. I think the first season of Heroes, for the most part, works. I agree with you that they shelled out at the end. Once they showed that Sylar was actually alive, it should have ended right when Heroes stabbed Sylar through the heart. End of season. And that's it. The show got too tricky, and they wanted to keep some of the characters going. And he
was a great character. People loved that character, but it should have ended right there. Like, I really agree. It should have ended right there. The character was great, and they wanted to keep that character.
Absolutely. So getting into this, since Joe hasn't seen it, I'll clue him in. The final season of Heroes, after that they spent a lot of time on a traveling circus. At the end of all of that, and I'm not making that up, Claire decides to climb to the top of a building or top of a tower right at the end, after doing a news report at the camera, basically telling the camera, everybody watch this. It mirrors what happens at the beginning of the series almost. And she jumps off a high tower in front of all these news cameras and shows herself. And the Evos, as they call them now, are set free or set out in the public, which leads us to where we start Heroes Reborn, where we're suddenly trapped in a bad version of the X-Men comic, where it's basically, okay, I'll say this about it. The Heroes reboot, I didn't mind some of the stuff when we dealt with our horn-rimmed glasses guy, the main character, it seems to be, of the series. When we started to get into our new characters, I rolled my eyes and felt a little bit ridiculous for it. The girl that can jump into video games, interesting power. I guess it was just done really silly. I didn't like a lot of the new characters. The one I did like, they kill in the first episode. The only character I was actually interested in his powers and stuff, they kill in the first episode, and they're going to focus on his brother that doesn't have powers. There are a couple of elements of the series I enjoyed, but for the most part, I got to say, I didn't like this as much as I wanted to like this. Maybe I'm way off, and I've read a lot of Heroes fans that have said that they actually enjoyed this, that it reminded them of the first season. Maybe that's the problem. It reminded me too much of what they were doing in the first season, and it felt like they were trying to copy a lot, and it just didn't work for me.
It felt more like a reboot than a continuation.
Yeah, and I felt like it reminded me a lot, and this is going to seem weird, and go with me here a little bit. It reminded me a lot of well, I forget what season it was of Glee, but when in season of Glee, when they split off and had half of the characters, our old characters, our original characters, go to New York. And then they had half the characters be brand new characters that we were meeting back at the school. And they spent way too much time at the school because every time they'd show us the old characters, I'd be like, this is all I care about. So, and it was almost similar with Heroes. It was like, oh my God, the Haitian. Oh my God, the Haitian. I love the Haitian. Oh God, they're not going to use the Haitian. Now I have to pay attention to this bullshit. And I guess I'm going to give it another shot. I'll give my rating right off the bat. I'm going to give the second episode a shot. It's a show that I'm going to have to watch at my house anyway. It's going to be on the television, so I'm going to be watching it. So I just didn't like it. The storyline to me, I don't want to ruin too much of it, but it was very much X-Men-y, like mutant registration and a lot of talk about that stuff. There was a lot of like tongue-in-cheek. It reminded me a lot of the Gotham premiere last year too, where they just threw in all these little Heroes references like, oh, there's a Ninth Wonders comic. Oh, there's horn-rimmed glasses, getting his glasses. There's an obvious situation where Hiro Nakamura is going to show up at some point. There's this. Yeah. I mean, it just seemed like it was a little too cliche predictable, and it's almost like Tim Krang, your tricks don't work on me anymore. I wanted to see, it's like one of the complaints I have about Fear the Walking Dead isn't that it's a bad show, it's that they're skipping over some of the interesting stuff. Like I want to see what happened right after what Claire did. I want to see what happened to our main characters. What made Heroes great concept wasn't just necessarily the concept. It was also perfect casting in those moments. I'm not a big fan of Milo, whatever his name is, but he was good as Peter Petrelli in those first couple of seasons. He was good. Nathan was amazing. You had all these individual characters that were very compelling. Siler, he's a movie star now. There's a reason why he was so compelling and they kept him on the show, because he's a compelling person. I didn't get any of those vibes from any of the new characters. That said, it could get better if they focus the story a little bit. You see where the story's going. Natural disaster that needs to be stopped by a group of heroes coming together. I did like how it all started out with the group therapy thing and seeing all that. I didn't mind those two characters, the husband and wife duo that we were following. But for the most part, I was kind of disappointed in it. Joe, what did you think of Heroes?
I watched season 1. I didn't see this.
So what'd you think of this episode? Oh, you didn't see this episode. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
I will watch it.
On
demand
No, don't watch it. Okay, this is my thing to you. If you are a Heroes obsessed person, if you're someone that loves the series Heroes and you're
season 1
and you're really, really curious, I mean, by loved it, I mean you watched it till the end and you're curious about what happens after the point of season 4 or season 5, wherever that was. I forget how many seasons it went after the carnival season. And you're curious about where horned rim glasses went. Check it out. Watch it. You may fall in love with it again. If you've never watched Heroes before, maybe check it out. But it seems like it's trying to piggyback on the popularity of video games and superheroes and exploit that and superhero TV shows. It didn't feel organic to me in any way in the way that the first season of Heroes felt.
There's a good Heroes kind of show on the PlayStation Network. On PlayStation.
I've actually heard that. So my interest in it is no. I don't think Katie or Joe. Someone asked, does Katie suggest watching Heroes? I don't think she watched it either.
We both watched season 1, and that was it. We both loved season 1. But. So
that being said, that's basically my rating of it. Is a skip it if you haven't watched here. Skip it if you only watched season 1 of Heroes and you dropped off somewhere around season 3 when it started to get shitty and you're hoping this is old Heroes. If you like Heroes all the way through, it's not much better or worse than the stuff that happened towards the end. I tend to like the last season because I like the characters that are on that show, but visually and put together wise, the powers are done somewhat interesting, and there are some interesting elements that I'm curious to see where they'll go with it. There is one character in particular, a bald guy that has a bag full of pennies and his powers involved with the pennies. That seems very interesting to me, and a kid that can do some porting that seems kind of interesting. So we'll see where those things go. Personally, I think if they were going to reboot Heroes, they should have done it with none of the old characters, not make any of the old characters show up until maybe season 2. And and you develop a complete new cast. But again, that's been Tim Krang's big problem. Originally, that was his plan, to do volumes and maybe have some of the characters eventually come back, but have every volume be different characters. But he couldn't do that because he got attached to his stars. And now that some of the stars have moved on, he can't cast the really important ones. So he's casting all these other people and making them a focus, where I think it's a mistake. I think if you wanted to start a new hero show, start it following the kid that they have in high school, just basically following him and doing everything around him instead of doing what they're doing. It's too much, too quick, too bad. Hold on it. Heroes is a hold on. So Joe, before we go, there's been a couple mentions in the chat room of a show that I think you've watched that I haven't watched, that I'm curious what you think of Z Nation.
I love Z Nation. I haven't watched if it started already this season. I have not seen this season yet. I really liked last season, of course, from remember the Wonders, the Oneidas?
Yes, the Oneidas.
Spartacus was in it for the first half of the season.
Guy Patterson?
Yep, Guy Patterson was in it, and he was really good. And there's other really good aspects of that show. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek. The new guy / cop from Memphis / awesome actor that's really thin, geeky kid. Plays this kid up in the Arctic U.S. Army listening post or whatever.
It's 2 weeks. Tim Gesh says the new episode starts in 2 weeks. So Joe will definitely be talking about Z Nation, and maybe I'll check it out as well on these weekly recaps. We're going to be doing different shows in these weekly recaps, not necessarily always talking about the same ones, maybe talking about less shows sometimes, more shows other times. But this will be an open area where it's more of a free-form show where we're going to talk about a lot of different topics. We want you guys to bring topics into the chat room, selections, give us selections of shows you might want us to check out an episode here and there, and what you guys think, and we'll share your thoughts at the end on shows that you have watched that we haven't watched. But for now, Joe, let's do something that I'm very curious. We will do a good selection. Ren Redmond says, I just started watching Z Nation. I like it. Farcloud had a suggestion of us going back through at the end here and giving each one of these shows a 1 to 10 rating or something like that. So okay. I'll do the ones that I've seen that you haven't seen yet. Gotham, I will say the premiere of Gotham, I will give a solid 8. I think it was a really good episode. And basically when I'm giving these 1 out of 10 ratings, it's within the genre that the show is of itself, and not based on, like, if I'm comparing for movies, and like Ghostbusters and The Godfather would both be 10s within their individual ratings. But if I'm comparing them together, obviously The Godfather is a better put together movie than Ghostbusters.
Right.
But they're both 10s for Ghostbusters as a comedy, Godfather for a drama crime movie. So right. Gotham premiere, I will give an 8. And the other show that you didn't see on this list that we talked about was Heroes. The Heroes premiere, I'm going to give this Heroes episode, this premiere, a 4 out of 5. 4 out of 10. Scream Queens, I give Scream Queens a solid 7.
Okay.
Maybe an 8. It's pushing. So let's get into Minority Report first, Joe. Minority Report, I give a 5.
Yep, I was 5. Because it's not bad enough to really warrant less than that, but it's just generic. So I go with a 5. Absolutely.
I will say for Limitless, I will give Limitless an 8. 8. Solid 8. I would give the Muppets a 9. I'm giving the Muppets a 9.
Yep, I was there too.
Oh, you were there?
Yeah, so far we're right on.
We're best friends. Well, what else are we missing? We say Limitless is Survivor. I would give that Survivor premiere a 7.
For me,
it's hard to say.
I would say that's. I watched The Quest. I watched Capture, and now like this season of this. So, yeah.
I have not
go with that. I'll go with anywhere a 5 or a 6. It's.
Oh, Joe. No, Joe didn't have a colonoscopy yesterday. Did I say Joe had a colonoscopy yesterday? No. Joe, what's your colonoscopy rating? For my last colonoscopy, I give my last colonoscopy a 7. My first one was a 2. That shit sucked, the first one.
No, I just had a polyp sweep.
Just the sweep. Scout Dakota asks, Phil, what about the Blind Spot on NBC? How are we watching that? Not have not watched that yet. Next week, I am going to be watching the Fred Savage, The Grinder Show. And I also want to check out, next week, we'll be talking about the John Stamos grandfathered new sitcom by John Stamos. I want to check out next week as well to add to some of our other lists. And The Bastard Executioner, I give the second episode, The Bastard Executioner, I give that one a 1, where I would have given the first 2 episodes a 4. I think this episode,
it's gone downhill downhill. I thought episode 1 was really bad. Episode 2 kind of got better. This being episode 3 that just came out because the first one was 2 hours long. So
I know you were kidding, Farquaad, about the colonoscopy. It's okay.
It's a 1. It's definitely a 1. The show is probably the worst show I've seen on TV in a while.
Boffo the Clown says, my John Stamos is stuck in a tree. So, guys, I guess this is a good place to cut out. Thank you so much.
No, there's not. What did we watch last night, Katie?
What did we miss?
We got.
Let's say, figure it out. If we're
no, that's it. Okay, no.
I think that's everything we're talking about. Okay, so everybody, thank you so much for tuning into our first week recap. We hope you enjoyed. This was a different sort of experiment for us, and we're going to be back next week at 1:00 on Friday. And pending work situations for me or anything like that, I know, or major conflicts, I think that will be our time that this program's going to live. We're going to be here every Friday at 1 p.m. to talk about the week in review. And if there are shows that end up being on Friday nights or Saturday nights that we want to talk about, we'll just talk about them the following week. You know, like we'll just talk about it at that time period. So everybody, thank you so much for checking this out. And I think what we'll do for this is I'll work on getting the time codes on the video. And if people feel like they want separate videos later, we'll do that later. But I just need to figure out how to do the time code thing on YouTube. I've seen people do it. I think it's pretty easy. So everybody, if we haven't talked about a show you want to talk about, share it in the comment section. If you have any suggestions, you can always email me at igotissuesman@gmail.com. You can call in and leave a message for the following show. Just specify what show you want us to play it on. And that's at 781-990-8509. My Skype is at igotissuesman as well. If you want to add me on Skype, if you're one of our international people and want to be on the show at some point, we can do the Skype way. As I mentioned before, if you want to email me your Skype numbers or your phone numbers, and you know what time the show will be on, and you get the time of when our shows are usually, and you want us to call you, or you call up, or you write us during the show, we can call you too.
Can do.
We can make house calls. We'll do that. We'll do the can do. You can follow Joe at Dirty Locks, and if you have any messages for Joe or Katie, you can tweet them there. Everybody, we will be back next on Sunday to talk about Fear the Walking Dead. So hopefully we'll do a better episode. We'll talk to you guys later. Peace.